like to dissect girls. Did you know I'm utterly insane?
And now, the special presentation.
Hey everybody, this is the Skewered Universe Podcast. My name is Jeff, and the following is part one of a three-part special we are doing on 1978's Dawn of the Dead, directed by George A. Romero. I'm joined by my friend Patrick French as we go over the movie, kind of go over the locations, somewhat of a different take on the breakdown of the movie. 3 parts, as I said, and we're doing this in honor of George Romero's birthday, which is on February 4th. So all throughout February, we'll be releasing these 3 episodes. And you can listen along, watch the movie, and have a lot of fun. I hope you enjoy listening to this episode as much as we had fun recording it. And stick around for parts 2 and 3 coming up real soon in February.
In 1968, George Romero brought us Night of the Living Dead. It became the classic horror film of its time.
Not that room! Not that room!
Now, George Romero brings us the most intensely shocking motion picture experience for all times.
It gets up and kills. The people it kills get up and kill. This situation must be controlled before it's too late. They are multiplying too rapidly.
Dawn of the Dead.
Meet me on the roof at 9 o'clock. Getting out.
I don't believe
We're
it.
gonna
What?
get out in the chopper. We've got to survive. Somebody's got to survive.
They kill for one reason. They kill for food. They eat their victims.
Imagine, if you will, that something has gone terribly wrong.
Shoot it, man.
Now, accept the fact that there's no escaping the horrible consequences. George Romero brings back the dead. Night of the Living Dead has ended. Dawn of the Dead is here.
We must not be lulled by the concept that these are our family members or our friends. They are not. They will not respond to such emotions.
Operator dead. Post abandoned. We may never get out alive. It's everywhere. What the hell is it?
Looks like a shopping center, one of those big indoor malls.
What are they doing? Why do they come here?
Some kind of instinct, memory, what they used to do. This was an important place in their lives.
What is it?
We've got a war.
I'm afraid.
We have spawned our own savagery. Soon it will consume us all. It is a horrible, hauntingly accurate vision of the mindless excesses of a society gone mad.
They must be destroyed on sight.
When there is no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth.
We are down to the line, folks. We are down to the line.
Dawn of the Dead.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Skewered Universe Podcast. My name is Jeff, and we have something a little different, something a little special, something where you might want to find some friends and find a mall to hole up for security. Because we're talking Dawn of the Dead. Not that 2004 Dawn of the Dead either. I mean, that one's fine. But we're talking the George A. Romero original. And who better to discuss this with than my friend and yours, Patrick French. Patrick, welcome back.
Man, friend, that's a pretty strong word, Jeff. I mean, no, yeah, we're talking about Dawn of the Dead, the I guess you could say seminal zombie movie. I mean, some people might argue that there are previous examples, including the very first Night of the Living Dead by George A. Romero, or White Zombie, or what's that guy? I can't remember. I want to say Fellini, but I know it's not Fellini. The Italian dude who made the movie Zombies.
Oh, Fulci.
Fulci.
Lucio Fulci.
Lucio Fulci, who that movie Zombie has an amazing soundtrack, probably on par with Goblin. But Dawn of the Dead for me, when I think of a zombie movie and a modern zombie movie and a modern sort of horror film, Dawn of the Dead is what I go to, number one. And then, Day of the Dead would probably be, they change places all the time. So anyway,
Right.
we're talking about the 1970, was it 9 or 8, 78 version?
1978.
Yeah, the 1978 version with Rob Zombie's friend Ken Foree and Scott Reininger and Galen Ross and David MG, the Pete, Roger, Steven, and Francine of horror. But yeah, no, I'm excited. This is going to be awesome.
So before we dive in here and kind of get to what we're going to be doing, and we'll kind of break down how we're going to go through this, because this is going to be a long discussion that let's just get to it now. This isn't going to be one episode covering the whole movie. We're breaking it down into parts for you guys. So there's going to be a series of these coming out. Several episodes. We're breaking it down, kind of going over a discussion. That's how it's going to be. So you're not getting this 4-hour to 6-hour opus. It's going to be in pieces. You guys can enjoy it over time, and that gives us time to be able to discuss more about certain areas we want to touch on. And it's just going to be a nice, fun conversation of the movie. That being said, Pat, I want to find out, when did you first kind of discover Dawn of the Dead real quick? Like, how did you come to it? Is it something you knew about or something somebody showed you?
I think I saw this movie when I was way too young. Like I want to say sometime in the 80s, probably 86 or 87, maybe when I was 11 or 12 years old. I know I saw the uncut version, young enough to have had it leave a dent in my brain and really cause me to, feel anxious every time I watch this movie, but kind of like in a good way. It's kind of like something that is terrifying to me, but that so well that it's gradually become less terrifying, but on some level it still kind of messes with your head. It's just, I think it's the first time I really truly became kind of obsessed with the zombie genre. And the movie makes a statement. I mean, there's actually an intelligent message behind it. Like I think what a lot of people don't, what I think a lot of horror fans understand about George A. Romero, but I think what a lot of the general public may not understand, or first-time viewers of the film, is that there's a very deep symbolism embedded in the theme of the film. I think that kind of runs through many of Romero's early flicks. I think in his later zombie flicks, he kind of beats you over the head with it, but in his early flicks, I think it was very subtle, and I think he was really telling a really masterful story and really using the gore and the violence and the tension of the film to, really nail that point home. But when did you first get exposed to it, Jeff?
I got exposed to it a little bit later, probably in my early 20s. Like, I had heard about the movie, but I had never sought it out. I had never seen any part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, Netflix comes around. And I was able to get the disc sent to my home. So I rented the DVD, watched it, and immediately was like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Why haven't I been able to get a hold of this? And then eventually I bought they had like the several disc special edition with the theatrical cut and then the European cut. And then I think there's even a third cut that's even longer than both of those. It puts everything together.
There is, yes. I actually watched that on YouTube. Don't tell George A. Romero. Oh, too soon for a George A. Romero being dead joke.
It's been a couple of years now.
Yeah,
that's how I watched it this last time too, even though I own it on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
It's like, let me watch that one. So we watched a similar one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I came to it in my early 20s and I loved it. The message is very clear as long as you're paying attention.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed the the effects, the acting was solid.
Yep. Yeah, it's a solid. Yeah.
Everything about it just kind of blew my mind. Like, this is from 78 and people hold this in high regard, and I understand it. And I think that's part of why I respect so many older films, is I go back with not trying to compare it to something else. So I didn't have but a few things to compare this to. So I set any modern zombie movies aside. So let me watch this with fresh eyes, as if I was watching it in 78, even though I wouldn't even have been born yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I've come to love this movie. I think, like you, it kind of, between it and Day of the Dead, they kind of switch places. Day of the Dead usually tops out as more of my favorite, and this running a close second. But you never know. On some days, they flip.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're definitely doing an episode of Day of the Dead, and I think, kind of like what you're saying, that these movies really kind of deserve to sort of be broken up, because the scenes and the locations are all so distinct, and I think they're part of that narrative. I think Romero is definitely an old school linear storyteller, and I think Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead definitely have a very linear progression. There are very distinct character arcs, although there's some twists and turns, but by and large, they are pretty linear, especially in Day of the Dead. But we're not talking about Day of the Dead, even though I could talk about Day of the Dead forever and ever.
Same.
Yeah, but no, I mean, I kind of introduced this film to my friends, and it became very memorable. But I remember, just like it was yesterday, my buddy Jonah and I watching this as, like, bright-eyed 12 or 13-year-olds, just being like, holy shit. Because there are so many holy, and I'll censor myself because my daughter's here, so many holy crap moments in this film where you're just like, what am I seeing right now? I mean, we'll talk about them, but man, this movie is just packed with those moments, and yeah, it's mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's definitely got those moments. That was when the first time I watched it and saw some of those, I was like, what am I watching? What is this? Oh my God, I love it.
Yeah. Well, I think, like, I agree with you. The 2004 Zack Snyder remake wasn't bad. Certainly, I don't think holds a candle to Romero's film, but yeah, I mean, the basic plot line is there. They, in the 2004 version, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it in the last 18 years, I don't think I'm spoiling anything for anybody, but they have a zombie baby in that one, and clearly, Dawn doesn't have a zombie baby. I guess, well, I guess it kind of does. I don't know. We'll talk about that later, but
possibly, but
yeah, I think we'll talk about that probably in the very beginning, because I don't know, whatever. Yeah, but
I think the last thing I'll say about the 2004 Dawn of the Dead is, I think it's as decent as it is because James Gunn wrote the script.
Oh, did he really write the script for that?
Yeah. Zack Snyder directed, but James Gunn was the one who wrote the script. So I think that's where the little homages come into the original, but yet he kept it a little bit more different, so as not to be a complete rehash of the original. But enough said about that.
Wasn't there bullet time in the 2004 version of the film? Don't they have like some bullet time action sequences, or I think it's when the zombies are on fire, they slow down the film.
They slow it down, but not so much bullet time. God, I may have to go back and watch it because I own that one as well.
I mean, there's a zombie kid, there's a zombie baby. Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent.
It's easy to do. It's easy.
There's zombie kids in Dawn of the Dead, so if you want to see kid zombies, you're not going to get a zombie baby, you might get a baby born in the zombie apocalypse at some point off screen, but if you want some zombie kids, Dawn of the Dead gives you zombie kids.
Yeah, and we'll definitely get to where they show up.
Sorry.
No. This is fine. We're giving teases. Everyone's gonna be like, "What are they talking about?" If they've never seen this, they're gonna understand it. If they have seen it, they'll be like, "Oh, I wonder what they're gonna say about it."
Or if the zombie apocalypse happens during the course of our recording, completing this epic here, maybe they'll never know. I mean, come on, man. It came out in 78. If you haven't seen it, if you've waited 30 or 40 something years to see the original Dawn of the Dead, dude, it's on YouTube. It's free. Just cue it up, give it a watch. You'll know what we're talking about.
Exactly. So that being said, let's go ahead and dive in. I mean, right from the beginning. It's very much like there's no opening sequence. We're cutting to opening credits, title card, Francine asleep in the TV station, which I don't know why that room had shag carpeting all over the walls.
Yeah, it was that. I think that's one of the most, I mean, like super simple intro, but like that blood red shag carpeting on the walls of the TV station. I guess they were using that as like I guess they're in the sound booth or control booth.
That's the only thing I can think of is like it's providing some kind of sound insulation.
Yep.
And she's woken up and basically the station is just bustling and chaotic from the start.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that this scene, the scene that we're talking about, or this location that we're talking about, is the aptly named WGON radio station or television station. I mean, if George isn't beating you over the head with the symbolism there, I don't know. That's almost like a mugging, like. But yeah, no, it's a chaotic scene. It's I really think that the way that the film opens is so effective. It's like, what do they call it, in media res, you're just right in the thick of the collapse of everything at that point, and it really, the first 30 seconds, the music, Jeff, the music, right, doesn't it grab you? Like Goblin soundtrack, where they're using synthesizers. Let's not forget like how ahead of its time Goblin was for a movie soundtrack. So far ahead of its time, like full on synthesizers. What they create with that score, and especially the first 3 minutes of the film, is just like mind-blowing. I think the music really helps add to that that nervous, the anxiety. I just remember being a kid and watching the first 5 minutes of the opening 5 minutes of Dawn of the Dead, where people are going nuts. Fran is asleep, she's kind of having a nightmare or whatever, and she wakes up, and that electronic stab comes in with the music, and you're just like, it's like, oh shit, like, you're there, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it hits you right away. You're like, oh
yeah.
But
like,
I love synth music anyway for movie scores, and a lot of it has to do with, and brief aside, has to do with my love of John Carpenter films and the way he uses the synth scores and stuff.
Oh, totally.
So going back to Goblin, it's like hearing it in Dawn, I'm like, okay, I know exactly what I'm in for hearing this music.
Well, that's what's so crazy and unique about Dawn, is that, I mean, tell me, Carpenter had to watch that film 1,000 times. Like, he had to have been heavily, I mean, all of the filmmakers, legit, 1978 was still fairly early in terms of horror movies in America, I should say. And what George A. Romero was doing was like so far ahead of its time. And if you consider an all electronic soundtrack in 1978, I mean, I think Kraftwerk was probably doing electronic music in 1978, but I mean, by and large, that was like way ahead of the curve, you know. I mean, but yeah, oh, that just that the first 5 minutes of that film, you know, you feel like you want to throw up because you feel like you're in it, you know.
Yeah, it sets the tone so perfectly, and it works because the music is unsettling, and the scenario we're immediately thrust into, which from what I was getting, this takes Dawn of the Dead, despite it being released about 10 years after the original night, is taking place, I think, weeks to maybe a month or two after the original incident started. So basically that timeline is very short, despite the 10-year gap between movie releases. The timeline is weeks to maybe a month or two. So I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Now we're seeing that it's escalated, and we're seeing what people are trying to do. And we see that in this chaotic mess of a television station that Francine, when she wakes up, she's looking around, seeing everyone frantically trying to do this. And we get a cameo from George Romero.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
His then wife.
Yeah, that's right. He was in there. Yeah. I mean, from what I read, I believe a lot of the production staff were involved in that particular, the opening sequence. There are cameos by a lot of the production staff, Romero's production staff, because you know, I believe they shot the film entirely in or they shot several of the scenes, you know, the apartment building scene, the TV station scene, in Pittsburgh, where they were kind of based out of. And so to save, you know, money, they involved a lot of the production people, you know, in sort of a tongue-in-cheek sort of homage, you know, I guess, as the TV people in the beginning of the film. But yeah, for sure. And I mean, I what's cool about George A. Romero too is, you know, if you think about all three of the movies, right? If you think about the holy trinity of zombie horror, and even his subsequent films, with the exception of maybe Land of the Dead. I don't think Land of the Dead has explicitly a female protagonist. The three films have all female protagonists. They're all of the main characters are females and are women. And, you know, I kind of feel like there's an evolution of the heroines in his zombie movies, you know, like, I think what's her name? Barbara. They're coming for you, Barbara. I think Barbara is, you know, kind of a bit meek, but then she kind of gets it together. I think Franny, is starts out a bit weak, you know, but spoiler alert, she gets it together. And I think, God, what's her name's from Day.
I know the actress's name, but I can't remember the character name. It's Laurie Cardiel.
Yeah, Laurie Cardiel. Yeah, who her dad. Man, I'm gonna do a bunch of asides. Laurie Cardiel's dad was like some sort of radio guy in Pittsburgh who Romero loved. And
Chili Billy hosted a
Chili Billy
horror theater type of thing.
Yeah, and that's why, you know, that's why he was like so gung-ho about getting her. But Laurie Cardiel's character, you know, I think starts out the movie strong and ends the movie strong. So you see this like progression of his heroines in these films, and I definitely think of the three, I really think Fran's character arc is the strongest.
I think so, because she very much seems more like Barbara towards the beginning, and then it kind of just, she goes, nope, this is what's happening now. I'm not going to be that way. This is what I'm going to do. She very much kind of puts her own foot down, like, no.
And you know what we what we don't know as the audience until later in the film is, hint, hint, we got a baby on board here, Jeff.
We do.
We got a zombie baby on board.
Anytime I hear baby on board, and this is a weird aside, I think of that Simpsons episode with the B Sharps, Homer, and his barbershop quartet. Sorry. Random
No
aside.
worries. No worries.
It happens.
I wasn't a big Simpsons fan, but I'll just take your word for it. But no,
it's not for everybody.
But yeah, no, we don't know this yet, but Fran is pregnant by her dashing not quite, I guess, boyfriend, or we don't know if she was cheating on her husband, or
not quite up. Boyfriend.
Yeah, which kind of makes me feel like there's some sort of sketchy Tinder action happening there, you know. Little workplace romance.
Honestly, you know? It's so weird because you're not really given a whole lot.
Yeah.
Until later when you kind of see how things play out between them a little more.
Yeah, but I mean, even then, you're just kind of like, do these people actually like each other? I mean, well, that's for later on in our episode. But yeah, no. What were your thoughts on kind of the first, 10 or 15 minutes of the film where we hear the score and we get to meet Francine and we get to kind of get an idea of what's going on?
One of the first things that I took away this last time I watched it was everything is very claustrophobic. It is shot in a way where everyone is like very much crowded together.
Yeah.
Even when you see the scene of the doctor and the TV commentator sort of arguing about the science when this actor's trying to explain to people like, look, they die and come back, and then the people they kill get up and kill. It's like,
and kill.
He's trying to explain,
people
the people they kill get up and kill.
Kill.
He's very adamant.
Yes.
And they're arguing over the science. Even though you see everyone working, it's still shot in such a way where they all seem like they're so close together that it's just chaotic and claustrophobic, and it's disconcerting. It's uncomfortable. And
Definitely,
there's never a moment where you're not like, oh, okay, this is a little better. You're always like, I just want everyone to give everyone their own space, but they're all just so cramped and moving around, and
definitely ignoring that COVID protocol, Jeff, I think.
Which I thought the way the scientist was trying to talk about, look, the science proves this is what's happening, and the commentator going, nobody's going to believe you. What about science? I'm like, still very prescient for these current times we're in of COVID-19.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because there are many science deniers and people saying, we don't really know that that's true. And the scientists are like, no, here's the data. Come on, guys.
I think, it's so funny to me is like we were just discussing before we started recording the episode, the Don't Look Up movie. And I think that's a common theme in a lot of these horror films is the inability of science or the scientific method accounting for what's happening. And I don't know if that's like, part of me believes that's like a convenient sort of plot device so that they can kind of do whatever they want, or if that's really an astute observation of human nature. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
No, I totally understand what you're getting at there.
Yeah. And I think, lots of films do it. I mean, one of the best films that does this, that contains this idea is Prince of Darkness, where, where the computer girl is like typing on her Apple IIe or whatever the hell it was, a Commodore, the god Pluton will not save you, like it's just, it's definitely a handy device to use, and I think, but it fits so well in Dawn, and it fits so well in that zombie genre of like, well, we don't know what is causing it, but something's causing it, and there will always be people who will deny, even as they're being just torn apart by the zombies, and I think Romero kind of caught that, and like you're saying, it's very prescient for these times where we're just denying what's in front of us, and I think that that's a really astute observation of human nature. So good call out there, Jeff.
Every once in a while I have a spark of genius.
Hey man, you knocked it out of the park with that one.
It really stood out to me on this watch. Like, he's going, no, he's basically laying out A, B, and C, and this guy's going, yeah, but the people won't believe that because you're not really presenting them with anything they can understand.
Yeah.
Like,
well, it's like just in like Don't Look Up, where like finally the scientist had to have an epic meltdown on television, and even that didn't get people to sort of wake up, and it's the same thing that's happening in Dawn of the Dead. It's like in that beginning sequence, I think you as the viewer, the audience, truly, I mean, that's what's so horrific about it, right? Like I really think that's really what sets the tone of the film, is that whole interchange, like you're saying, when he's like, the people they kill, get up and kill. And the other guy's like, you scientists always talk that way, and blah blah blah. And it's like, when you see the collapse of reason and science, and the collapse of authority, and you see it happening, it's so unnerving, I think, to the audience, because it's really easy to sort of put yourself in that place. And I think I know there were some things going on in the late 70s that probably made the audience feel like they could put themselves in that place, but I also think that if you're coming into this late and you're watching it for the first time as a viewer, you can definitely put yourself into that position now much more easily.
Oh, definitely. I mean,
yeah,
it's one of those things where certain things about the story still fit modern times. It still works for modern times because there's nothing necessarily dating it too much.
Yeah,
it's just human nature. And
yeah, sorry, Jeff.
No. It's fine. I didn't know where else I was going, so
I just
like my brain just shut off for a second.
Oh no, it's like there was not a minute that really, honestly, the TV station section of the film, I mean, there's not a minute of wasted time where tension is not being built, right? Like, I feel like 90% of the tension in this story is built in the first 15 minutes of the film, or however long that scene lasts. I wish, if I was smart, I would have put like a running time on. I would have measured a running time on that scene. But not a single second of that a film is wasted there.
No, not at all. And I think you're right about the tension, because we get so much more of that when Francine is telling them not to run the rescue stations because some are closed down. The head of the station is like, no, you keep them on the screen, because when they're on the screen, we have viewers, and viewers means every people. It's like, you're more
every
worried
moment
about
you're
viewers.
Not running those. Every moment you're running those rescue stations, people will tune out. Like, totally. Remember that? I mean, just so Hollywood there, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, he's more interested in how many people are going to stay tuned into his station instead of giving credible information, trying to help people. It's like, just keep them on the screen. I don't care if they're closed. That means people will watch our station. They're going to be tuned into us, and that's all I care about in the end. And that's what other people are just kind of like, you know what? They just kind of throw their hands up and go, I'm out of here.
Well, especially when, Francine's like, are you willing to murder people by sending them to rescue stations that aren't open? Like, I mean, come on, talk about laying bare the fragility of authority, and, the thin veneer of civilization. Like, I really think this film, and I think that's what I glommed onto, and that's what struck me, and maybe like made me a pessimist, dented my brain in a certain way, was just how easily this film made bare the fragility of our system, right? Like all it takes is one catastrophe to then create a cascading chain of catastrophes, and you watch that film and you see that interplay between Francine and the station director, and man, it's just so affecting. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
That's something that stood out to me, Jeff, as a kid. That interplay totally stands out to me. And then when the guy's like, "Get that fucking idiot off the air," like, like, the everyman in the scene, who is that guy, who's the guy who's arguing against science, and then Mr. Science, the science guy, like the science guy just doesn't even know what to do. But the everyman, reporter, man on the street, is like, "Get that fucking idiot off the air." Totally having the reaction that I think a lot of people would have today, just unable to entirely process kind of what's happening.
It's so much of the reaction. It's just everyone is reactionary. Everything. It's totally. Not listening. It's, oh my God, it's just reaction and blowing things out of control and not wanting to listen and be like, okay, you're telling us we may have some sort of info. What is it? It's screw it. It's the end of the world. We don't know what's happening. Chaos.
Okay. Yeah. Everybody leaves.
Living together. Mass hysteria.
But yeah, but I think, I think in a lot of ways that notion, that sort of every man and woman for themselves, historically we've seen that pan out many times over the course of history, and in the face of disasters. We've also seen the opposite, but I think the zombie apocalypse is like, it's like it's an existential threat, and I think that's why this film has so much like what's the cultural cachet, is because it's an Ellie, it's an extinction level event, like a meteor impact, or a 10-mile high tsunami, or a caldera exploding in Yellowstone. These are events that stand. Obviously the zombie apocalypse is totally Hollywood, but an event like that, you would just see things collapse rapidly as everybody kind of scrambles to get away from something that they can't really get away from. And I think, man, that's why I'm so torn, but I think that's why Romero's films and zombie films in general have captured the imagination, because it is like a comet impact or a meteor impact. Like, where are you going to run? You can't run,
right?
But it's so engaging, because there's also this possibility that maybe you can hole up in a mall and live in a sort of Garden of Eden type of situation. I think that's what really captures your imagination with this particular film.
Yeah, I agree. And I like what you said about the, one man, one woman kind of being able to survive on their own, because we kind of see that when Steven steps into the station and tells Francine, we can get out of here in the helicopter. We can leave.
Yeah. We literally have
steal the helicopter. Okay.
Yeah, we literally have Adam and Eve here, kind of setting it up. Romero doesn't go as far to paint that picture, but I think if you think about it, one can sort of infer sort of that scenario, and then you have two Abels. But but yeah, no, Steven comes in, we meet him, and he's ready to abscond with the WGON helicopter and just take off.
Yeah, tells her we can get out of here. We'll meet up with my buddy and we'll leave.
And don't make me come looking for you.
I never really put together the Adam and Eve thing, and when you said it, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah,
it just kind of clicked. I was like, oh yeah. Okay, thanks, George.
Yeah, I think that metaphor is like kind of what Romero is going for. This film, as you know, Jeff, has been sort of considered a deeply skeptical of consumerism, right? Like the zombies, have been described as like an analogy has been made between the zombies and consumerism culture and the rise of malls in the late 70s and early 80s, and sort of a condemnation of that lifestyle, right? Mm-hmm. And I really do think that there is it does hold some water, and that the Francine or Franny and Steven character are kind of like the ideal consumerists, right? Like they're setting this group of characters up to kind of represent, this sort of utopia in this mall that we shall soon talk about, I think, in the later episode. But yeah, no, and you first meet Steven, and can we talk about the creepy guy who's kind of eavesdropping
definitely.
On their conversation?
He's such a creep.
What did Leanne think about that guy? You got to ask Leanne her thoughts on that guy.
I'll have to once I show her the movie in its entirety.
Oh, okay.
She only saw bits and pieces as I was rewatching it, so it's one that I've been meaning to introduce to her, because I've shown her Day. I've shown her Day of the Dead. What
was her, if I may ask?
She really enjoyed Day of the Dead.
Nice.
How dark it was, the effects. And some people be like, well, you can't really show her out of order. I'm like, look, you'll get the entire story. There's no real through line other than the zombie infection gets worse progressively through each story.
Yeah.
There's no returning characters. There's no real through line. Yep. It's part A is night, part B is dawn, part C is day, but you can watch them out of order and still understand what's happening.
For sure. And yeah, I mean, it kind of, in a weird way, is like a retelling of Dawn. Not a retelling, but the structures are very similar.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And the arcs are very similar, and even the mode of escape is exactly the same. So yeah, I mean, maybe Romero had like a helicopter guy that he got some good rental rates off of. I don't know, but yeah, no, that guy, yeah, our job here is finished.
Standing by his camera, being a creep.
And he like
why are you even here?
He was so like, it was like he was on like Thorazine or something, because the way he like flips off the camera or whatever, he's just like, he doesn't even look at them, he's just like he's just staring blankly into the distance.
Yeah, I actually backed it up and watched that a second time, his delivery, and I was like, well, it was 78. Who knows what drugs were going around the set? Oh my God.
I mean, but I mean, like, zero reaction to like the absolute hell that is being unleashed upon, the world that he lived in, and he just has nary a care in the world. He's just like, our jobs here are finished. And let's talk about his creepy hair. Okay, come on, that dude had the creepiest. He just looked like a creep. He looked like a sex offender.
That was like peak 70s creep hair.
Yeah, for sure.
Everything about that was like, if you had a mustache, I'm keeping children away from you because you might be driving a panel van.
You know who you reminded me of is like if you were to take what's his name from The Big Bang Theory, Jim Parsons, Sheldon. That was like Sheldon's dad
Oh,
before
no.
before Sheldon was born. Sheldon's
I
dad
can
worked
see
at the
exactly what you're saying. Oh my god.
so Sheldon's dad, yeah, he added some flavor to that scene, I think.
Oh,
Yeah, it was
he's
that oh
like he didn't even care about what was going on at the station around
no,
him, let alone
there's
what was happening outside in the world. He's just like, meh,
yeah,
whatever.
he's filming, think about it, he's filming a like evening broadcast. We don't know what time of day it is. I guess we assume that it's like either afternoon or late afternoon because Steven says for her to meet him at the wherever they're supposed to meet. Did he tell her like at the police dock or where did he? I can't remember exactly where he. Oh, on the roof.
On the roof at midnight. So I was
But they don't even
assuming
meet.
maybe it was like 10 o'clock at night or something, maybe early
Yeah.
evening, but they really don't give you a time frame.
And I okay, so I'm putting it together in my head. So Franny and Steven are going to meet on the roof. They get in the helicopter presumably, and then we move on to the next scene. But yeah, he wants her to meet her on. Steven wants Franny to meet him on the roof at midnight. This guy, the TV, I don't want to call him a pedo, but I don't know, man. He just creeped me out. And this is like my 12-year-old self reacting to how creepy that guy was, and I get the same reaction every time I see him. But yeah, I mean, he's watching society fall apart. He's filming with absolutely zero emotion. The everyman Joe of the broadcast, like screaming over and over again, "Get that fucking idiot off the air!" The scientist who's just blankly, just total 50-yard or 100-yard stare into, his existential and literal doom, and just no reaction, not panicked, not like we don't know what he's gonna do. Like I feel like that guy was part of the tactical team that raids the apartment building, because I mean he was ice cold, man.
Yeah, and
He's
that's
a
actually a
standout character.
That's actually a good transition if you want to dive into the housing project raid.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, in terms of my notes, that's kind of what I had, was that guy. I just felt like that guy was like somebody I wanted to talk about. But in terms of is there anything else that kind of stands out to you in terms of the the TV station? I mean, you see everybody starting to take off. You see the security guard take off at the end, and the director's like, arrest them or stop them, and he's just like, whatevs.
Yeah, nobody's listening to this guy anymore. They're like, you know what? Society's collapsing. We don't need to listen to you. This job won't mean anything.
But I mean, I think the funny thing, the thing that kind of stood out to me is that, just one more thing about the TV station. The thing that kind of stood out to me is, they kind of leave that particular scene in that location. And, I remember the first couple times I watched the movie, I just sort of assumed that that the station gets overrun or whatever, but that's not necessarily the case. We find out later on in the movie.
Right.
But yeah, really quickly, yeah, transitioning over to the Project House scene. But yeah, let's talk about scene number 2. Arguably the most politically incorrect and culturally insensitive cluster of scenes in the entire film.
Yeah.
This is kind of where we get into the dark underbelly of conservative America. And no, I'm just kidding.
And it's also where we meet Roger, but everything else about it kind of outweighs meeting Roger.
I mean, can we say that Wooly is definitely like he definitely would be a Trump? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just gonna scratch that. Scratch that. I don't want to offend any listeners here. But
Wooly
no,
is definitely somebody that is on one side of the line
yes.
and has hard opinions about certain people. With the epithets he was throwing out there regarding anyone in the building.
Yeah.
Which I'm not going to
much,
repeat because that's not word. Those aren't words I say.
Yeah, we don't say those words, but yeah, Wooly definitely has some preconceptions of other folks' lifestyles. We'll just put it that way. He definitely he is definitely disenfranchised. He definitely feels like he is getting the short end of the stick and is not shy in expressing those opinions in the opening scene when we meet Roger, arguably the best shot of the group, wouldn't you
Definitely
say?
the best shot.
Definitely. Definitely way better than Steven or Franny.
That's not hard to be. I mean, Steven looks like he's never actually held a gun.
And then we meet the red shirt, Roger's buddy.
Oh yeah, who nervous and dispatched not too long after. I guess it's the cohorts of Martinez, because there's a guy on a bullhorn saying, "Martinez, just come on out.
Just
no one will get hurt. Just come out peacefully."
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it's a firefight. Guys coming out on the roof. One in
Roger.
Face.
Yeah. There's some questionable casting decisions. I mean, it's hard for me to believe that you could not find a Latino ex actor in Pittsburgh in 1978. I'm sure George Romero could have found somebody, maybe as a budgetary thing.
Maybe I don't know. I choose to
I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt there. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I don't want this to turn into a wait a second. This is just like that movie Soul Man.
It's not nearly Soul Man levels of
Soul Man levels of insensitivity and just like.
I always took this more as, we got about 3 hours to shoot this. Just grab that guy and make him look like somebody, because I haven't found anybody else.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is that when I was reading into the film and kind of watching a lot of documentary footage about the film, that whole rooftop scene was something that Romero did have to slap together, and they actually filmed it on the rooftop of their production offices. So it was something that was really hastily done. They had to do it for the cheap, or on the cheap, because this film had I think it had like $1 million budget or something. It was a really tight
they didn't
budget.
have a lot to work with.
So they needed to buy like gray paint by the gallon, truckload, pallet, So I think there were some choices that were made, but so you got your red shirt guy. You meet Roger. Wooly is the name. Our friend Wooly.
Yeah.
Mr. Ape Shit himself.
The epitome of loose cannon, Wooly.
Yeah, Wooly definitely was not shy on the old street howitzer there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because once we have our confrontation on the roof and we see our red shirt get shot, Roger kind of goes, "Oh crap!" Kind of gets his bearings.
Yeah, it's go time.
And they end up infiltrating the building. This is when Wooly just fully goes into business for himself. He's like, "I don't care about the law. I don't care about anything. I'm killing anyone that's not in my squad." And he probably would have killed people in his squad anyway if they looked at him.
Yeah. Or if they were a darker shade. You know what I mean? Like, this is Wooly finally has his I'm going to exercise my Second Amendment right writes on the people that I've been complaining about on the rooftop moment. And he literally does go, or really does go ape shit, running through the apartment buildings, dispatching various people, including like a couple of classic scenes. I think one very iconic scene in general. You want to talk about this one, Jeff?
Yeah, the one, if I know which one you're talking about, it's he kicks open the door and there's a guy standing there, and he basically does not waste any time and blows his head up with a shotgun in glorious fashion. It's maybe 2 seconds of the door being kicked open and him firing. Just like, oh, bang, yeah. All right, done.
Wooly gives zero fucks at that.
It was like, didn't even see if he was a zombie or if he had a gun. It was just, you're in my way. Boom.
He wasn't even in his way. He just kicked open the door and straight blew that dude's head off because, Wooly was feeling it. He was in the zone. You know what I mean?
He was feeling something. Oh, man.
I mean, fucking Wooly, man. Like, I don't know. I feel like that whole sequence was just an excuse. Like Tom Savini. Let's talk about Tom Savini, who had a slight role in the film, where he also chose to use a racial epithet that was, novel, but still pretty dang racially insensitive.
Not quite as bad or jarring, but you hear it and you're like,
you're like, did I hear that right? Yeah. You're like, wait a second, come on, man. I really think Tom Savini wanted to show off what he could do, technically, and I definitely think in terms of Tom Savini and just I mean that head exploding scene has got to be one of the most pivotal. Holy shit. I mean, I'll tell you this, Jeff, that when I first saw that scene as a kid, the very first time, not knowing anything about the fucking movie, that shit blew I mean, I was horrified and for a nanosecond just completely speechless. And then me and my buddy Jonah started just fucking laughing and going this is fucking awesome.
Pretty much my reaction, but I was by myself and I was just speechless, and then I was like, holy shit.
I mean that, man. Oh man, I just every time. I mean, people have done it since, and I think if you're a modern viewer of the film, and you're a big fan of action or horror or whatever, I mean, epic sort of, epic villain death is kind of par for the course. But I mean, this is just a quick 30 second scene of just unmitigated violence that doesn't really advance the overall plot of the film, except to show that Wooly is a crazy motherfucker at this point, that he's completely lost it. But yeah,
well, I would argue it does offer some advancement of the plot, because Wooly's going nuts. We see another SWAT officer kind of jump on him to try and stop him.
Yeah.
And one person just kind of steps out through the tear gas that they've used in this building and fires off one shot to take Wooly down.
You're right.
And that turns out to be another one of our heroes, Peter.
You're right. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, was that, because I don't know if that was actually established in the theatrical cut, or if that is, because I know in the extended cut, that's how they tie the people together. But in the original theatrical cut, and I could totally be wrong about this, I don't know if they established that that was Peter or not.
We didn't really see that it's Peter, and I think in both cuts it's the same until we get down into the basement.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
then he and Roger start talking and sort of introduce themselves. At
Yeah,
this
but
point,
Peter
we're just
doesn't-
seeing somebody step through and is like, I've had enough of this BS. We're here to do a job by the law. I'm taking this guy down.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh.
But I don't think Peter like explicitly says he killed Wooly, but he's like, you know, he asks Roger if he was in Wooly's unit.
Right. So
Yeah,
you were
but-
Wooly's, just like, yeah, but then Roger's like, yeah, but I didn't really want to be. But
Yeah,
I
but by
was.
the cut of Peter's jib, you kind of are like, okay, yeah, that was definitely Peter who fucking blew his ass away. But yeah, yeah, totally. No, that is you're exactly right. So I stand corrected on that. But
and it wasn't
I think
to try and correct you. I just was saying I
totally.
see it as it gives a reason for us to be like, well, who's this guy that took him out? And then we see later, like, oh, okay, that's the big guy that took him out. Okay, this is one of our other guys who we're going to follow.
Yeah,
Establishes
totally
him
right.
as sort of a like, I'm not going to take any crap from people, but if you're crossing a line, I'm definitely going to put you down, kind of person.
Oh yeah, for sure. I really think, you know, Peter, and if we're talking about finally the sort of fourth main character of the film, Peter really is sort of the moral compass of this little band, you know, the fellowship of the mall. You know, he really is the compass, the moral compass. He really is the guy who is, you know, the most level-headed and
the most grounded out of the group.
Yeah, for sure. Like, you know, which kind of makes his decision, his sort of his arc is probably the bumpiest, right? Like, you know, he goes definitely on the hero's journey, just like Franny does. But I think I would argue that her arc is a little more linear progression upward, and I think Peter's arc is a little different. But ultimately,
I can agree with that.
Yeah, ultimately they are, you know, they are the heroes, I guess you could say, of the story in a sense, you know, by by virtue of survival. Spoiler alert, but you know, but yeah, I mean, I think that segues into that kind of opens us up into kind of seeing the zombies, right? Like we've kind of heard about the zombies. The zombies have been foreshadowed through the first 15 or 20 minutes of the film, but now is when you actually get to see the zombies in action.
We get to see the one woman thinking her husband is fine, and he rips a chunk out of her neck.
Oh, well, I mean, let's go back. Let's go back to the I got some feelings on that particular scene.
Oh, but even before that, there's the two SWAT officers.
Yeah,
who go into that one room.
Yeah, and I think that scene is a really, I think it's a minor scene, but I think kind of going back to scenes that are advancing sort of the plot of the film, you know, that early encounter with those zombies really kind of shows you the sort of the dualistic, I guess, reactions to the zombies, you know, like they either, you know, the film kind of wants you to feel terrified and wants you to kind of take a look at these creatures, and you either react like the one officer who, you know, eventually kills himself, or the other guy who's just like, shoot it in the head, man, you know, like, you know,
the guy says shoot in the head, wrestles with another one and takes him out quickly and keeps telling the guy, just shoot it. This guy's hesitating, like he freezes up.
Exactly. And I think, you know, I think that's like a great scene, because it kind of, if you as the viewer are sitting there going like, well, you know, we would take these things out, right? You know, like you as the viewer, like this scenario is so unlikely, because, you know, we would just go around shooting them all in the head. You know, I think most people would be in a moral dilemma because, you know, I mean, I put myself in the position of these people. If it were my wife or my daughter who had become zombified, you know, I mean, could you make that decision? You know, if it was your wife or if it was your mom or if it was your sister or your best friend, or you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah, I
so
know
easy to
exactly.
be flippant about this and be like, well, screw it, I'd shoot him in the head. But realistically, like, you know, that would drive a person insane. I really think The Walking Dead, the first season of The Walking Dead with the what's his name, Morgan's character, where he stays, you know, to, it's again, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the fucking first season of The Walking Dead, well, you know, cue that up right after you're done watching Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead
Yeah.
and Night of the Living Dead. You could skip Land of the Dead and all of those other kind of crappy subpar Romero films, but yeah, you know, there's a huge there's a huge moral dilemma there, and I really do think that, you know, I think a lot of the population, if forced to, you know, take out their family members, would be like, it would drive you crazy, you know.
I agree 100%. I mean, even forced to take out a stranger like this guy, he was hesitating because I think it was one, out of fear, and two, out of what are we really supposed to do here? I don't know. Like confusion and fear, and like this was once a person, and he's just like conflicted with
Yeah.
what to do. And the other guy's just yelling at him, shoot him in the head.
Yeah. Yeah.
And ultimately,
I
that
mean,
guy seals his own fate by hesitating, and he gets bit.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, you kind of, I feel like the apartment house scenes are just like really, again, there's not a whole lot of wasted time in these scenes. There's, you know, it's not chock full of exposition, and the exposition when that you get when Peter and Roger finally meet up in the basement of the building is you know, is effective. You know, they meet with the guy, you know, kind of a jump scare, kind of clever gag there. They meet with the one-legged preacher who they think is a zombie momentarily.
Right. It's one-legged and blind, I believe, right?
Was he blind?
I think so.
Wow.
Although I might be confusing him with the preacher and They Live.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but goddamn, man, that guy is meat for the board. That sucks. That sucked to be one-legged. You know, that's the worst possible thing you could be, and blind. If you're one-legged and blind in the zombie apocalypse, you're definitely chum. Like I'm definitely kicking you off the bed of the truck into the zombie horde to slow them down for a minute.
I need to save myself. I'm sorry. You are slowing everyone down.
You're going to heaven, dude. You're a preacher. You're good.
God smiles upon you. Your noble sacrifice will be remembered.
Until the next person we got to sacrifice to stay alive for another episode, another movie.
Oh man.
But yeah, I mean you have that exposition down there. You know, they talk about sort of what needs to be done, and the preacher offers them some fairly succinct yet kind of ironic advice, right? Like, in order to win, we must stop the killing in order to stop the war, or to win the war, or something to that effect.
Yeah, something along those lines. I don't remember exactly, and I didn't write it down because I was taking so many notes at this time.
I think a really clever line that, you know, for me as a younger viewer, I totally missed, right? Like, this guy's basically telling them the secret and giving them this ironic advice that we know that's foreshadowing the impossibility and inevitability of this particular world we're in now, right? Where we can't stop the killing because The killing is getting up and coming after us. So kind of funny. And I think he echoes the same line that Peter's character echoes later on in the film, right? Doesn't he say when there's no more room in hell? Isn't that one of the lines that the one-legged preacher says?
He might say something along those lines. I don't remember exactly, but he may
like
say something close to.
Yeah, it's like in a kind of like a sing-songy voice. He says that when there's no more room in hell. I don't think he completes the line, but he's like saying something when he walks out, right?
Yeah.
Because Peter is largely silent. I think they're both largely silent in, while the preacher's giving them this sort of line, or while he's talking to them.
Yeah, they're both just kind of listening to him, like, okay, let's let him say what he's got to say, and then we'll move on and see what else is going on here.
Oh, but let's not skip. Yeah, you were talking about the arm biting scene, dude. Oh, I've seen that movie literally probably 3 or 4 dozen times, and it's so hard. I can take the neck scene, the neck biting, but the arm biting, for some reason, it's just too, I can feel it. You know what I mean? And it's gnarly. Like, I just am blown away how they were able to do that, because it looks so freaking real.
It's so visceral, and it's like, like every time I like grab my arm in the same spot, like, I can feel it. No, I don't want to.
And then when what is it? Kevita, what was his name? I forgot the guy's name, but she's like, God, what the hell? Miguel. She's like, Miguel, mi vida, mia, or Kevita, mi vida, mi amo. And, he's like, and then he bites her arm, and then he gets a chunk out of her neck, and he gets shot.
Yeah.
He's still got a chunk of meat in his mouth.
Oof.
Just gnarly.
And she's running at him, and they're trying to tell her, like, no, stay back. And she's like, no, it's my love. And he's like,
he's like, yeah, come to me, baby, come to Papa.
Yeah, come here, I'm hungry.
Talk about a DoorDash sort of scenario. Oh man, talk about an Uber Eats, pull it up to your curbside delivery, baby.
Oh man. And
it's awful.
I love that in its awfulness.
Oh, it's so good though. It's like that scene, those scenes like set the tone for the whole freaking movie. I mean, they don't get any gnarlier than that.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you got the National Guard down in the basement trying to do some cleanup operations. You got, the SWAT team or whoever the Peter and Roger are with, sort of upstairs, trying to clear the rooms. You got Miguel chowing down on his woman. You got Wooly blowing people's heads off. I mean, it's just chaos. It's
chaos. And there's 2 other scenes that I want to touch on here while we're discussing everything. One is kind of slow and sort of like dark and kind of like, oh, this hits weird. And I'll get to that one. But the other one that kind of seems comedic to me is we're in the midst of this zombie apocalypse. Everyone going into this building, every SWAT member, every National Guard person knows zombies exist. Yet there's a group of cops who start breaking down boards over a door and then freak out when they get grabbed by zombies. I'm like, guys, it's boarded for a reason. Leave it alone.
You kind of knew, like they didn't just board up this room with 1 billion zombies in it because,
And every time I see it, I'm like, guys, you could have just walked right by it. There's nothing in there for you.
Or, you just ask the residents of the apartment, like, yo, what's behind this door that's been heavily boarded and fortified? Like what's behind all of these boards that have been sort of loosely nailed together to create a barrier of some sort? And nobody ever asked that question.
Nobody. They just go in and they just start hitting the butts of their guns. They're knocking this wood down, and they're like, "Oh no, zombies!" As they reach out and grab them. I'm like, guys, come on.
Yeah.
It was a little humorous for me.
Oh, it's hilarious. It's like, what are you guys fucking stupid? Can we talk about Jim Carrey's first appearance in a film? You know who I'm talking about, right? So after the scene, so I think I know what scene you're going to talk about next, and that's the old shoot 'em up scene in the basement, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So there's that scene where Roger and Peter take care of business, and Roger is shocked as to why the residents of the building would drop, would wrap up their, I mean, what they should have done is they should have given the residents of the building the guns to take care of the zombie problem, because man, like, are we assuming that some of those zombies were wrapped up or taken care of after they died, like, and turned into zombies? Because man, hats off to the residents of the building for being able to corral them down into, down in the basement in essentially caged off area.
Yeah, I'm assuming a lot of them were just before, like, they hadn't turned, because how hard would it be to corral everyone if they had turned? There would have been no doing that.
But that freaking Yul Brenner looking dude who's chowing down on a leg. That dude definitely was a live one they corral, or an undead one they corralled down in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
But do you remember that scene when they take care of business down there, and that one guy's like, "You guys all right? You need more ammo or something like that?" And Peter's like, "It's all done, man. It's good." And then that other guy directly behind him, like, pokes his head in, all like, oh, like Mr. Magoo, like, all, oh, that guy looks just like fucking Jim Carrey.
Oh my God, you're right. Because I remember him sticking his head, and I'm like, what is this guy doing? It's like he just pops in, like, what's going on, guys?
He totally made like a comedic Jim Carrey face too, like totally cartoonish, like, ooh, like he had that like, ooh face. I'm like, oh my God, man, if that's, they're really calling up the bottom of the barrel. Oh man, I'd feel way safer with a bunch of those hunters out in the next scenes we'll be talking about.
Oh man. Oh my God.
But yeah.
Scene, it's just every time I watch it, you just see these zombies kind of thrashing around, and what I'm assuming are like laundry bags tied up around the neck. Just some of them are eating. They're not really tied up, so I'm assuming they were the last ones to just kind of get pushed down there.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Like, hand them a leg and throw them down there. Because they're eating.
They're tossing a leg. They're just like baiting the zombies into the cage.
Yeah, and then there's some that are completely wrapped up and just kind of thrashing about. You're like, oh.
Dude, this is where my D&D idea for a villager on a stick would come in handy. is like you get like like one of those man traps, and you just put like a non-turned corpse on the end of it, and you just stick it out there and bait the zombies into like jumping off cliffs or walking off buildings. You know what I mean? My D&D buddies always were totally repulsed by my trap finding technique in D&D, where I'm like, we just go get a corpse and we just stick it on the end of one of those man catchers, and we just like puppet it down the hall and set off any of the traps, and they're like, Pat, what the fuck is the matter with you?
It makes perfect sense to me.
I mean, and I blame Dawn of the Dead. I legit was like, I watched Dawn of the Dead too many times. But yeah, no, it's definitely a man. That scene was pretty crazy, because I mean, you got the personal and then you've got the impersonal where they're wrapped up in those laundry bags or sheets or whatever, and they're just kind of squirming, and you get that feel because right, you start to hear the noise, like them grunting and like
Yeah.
and it's, oh dude, because did you notice like there's music or background noise through the whole movie up until that point, but when they actually get in there and they're just shooting, it's the sound of the gunfire, the pistols, and the sound of like the zombies grunting, but nothing else. They like turn down all the music, all the background noise, so you just are left as a viewer to just hear the sounds of Peter and Roger basically
I did notice
killing
that.
zombies.
It's very simple sound design, but it's very effective. It's like no music, just the sounds of gunshots and moaning. That's all you're gonna hear.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, it's like Second Amendment porn, that scene. But
yeah, when you say that, I'm just like, I start thinking of people. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, no, totally. Like, I mean, definitely, some later scenes in the film where you have like the National Guard and some hunters was definitely, that's definitely conservative. That's Bible Belt country right there. You know what I mean? Like they're waiting for the zombie apocalypse to go off. But but yeah, no, that's in later scenes. But yeah, I think in terms of the apartment building, do you think is there anything else that you think? I can't really think of anything else that stands out to me except for Jim Carrey in an army uniform.
No, there's not a whole lot more that stands out because it's just another instance of that claustrophobia and chaos.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's done on purpose because then once we get to the mall setting, everything is very much open and expansed and spread out. So there's no more of that real claustrophobic feeling. It's like you kind of get a little bit of like a reprieve from everyone being so close around you and the chaotic claustrophobic feelings.
For sure. I mean, I definitely feel like you nailed it in terms of the chaos. Like really the first sort of 4 locations in the film illustrate the sort of like primordial chaos of a civilization dying, right? You've got this chaos, you've got this this sort of madness and these structures that we think are enduring and long lasting just sort of falling apart, and everybody devolving into like their various camps or groups or what have you. You can see everything sort of fragmenting and kind of falling apart. And I think the first 4 sort of major scenes in the film, the TV station, the apartment building, you got the police dock, which I think we could probably touch on, and then sort of save the rest for the next episode. But you got the police dock also sort of like a really good, almost like a kind of symbolic, so you've got, the TV station in my mind represents kind of the social structures falling apart, right? And then you've got the apartment building where you kind of see, or I would say the TV station is more the cultural like meme sort of structures, the kind of like the authority, but the media structures sort of falling apart, coming undone. Then you've got the apartment building where the social structures, the families, relationships sort of start to fall apart because people are getting eaten by their family members or unable to sort of put people down or think about their relationships in a logical, super cold way. And then you have the police dock where you see like the authority has really broken down, right? And we get to meet one of the most legendary zombie actors, and a Pittsburgh guy that George A. Romero really liked. What's his name? His name
Joe
eludes me now.
Pilato.
Joe Pilato, yeah, Joe Pilato, very young Joe Pilato. He was even younger in The Crazies, but a super young Joe Pilato. And his gang.
Of, which I called here in my notes, his gang of running weirdos, meaning they're running away from what's going on, and they're all just slightly weird.
Oh, they're doofuses for sure. I mean, I legit feel like a mentally challenged individual is legit a part of their legit mentally challenged individual is part of their team, like like I feel like how that guy has managed to survive oh man,
sheer luck
because Darwinism definitely has taken in the film, probably had taken 90% of the people like him,
Oh yeah.
but yeah, we also see the all four of the main characters kind of come together and meet each other for the first time.
Right. This is where they all kind of get together, but we see that this police dock. Now, I'm not sure if it's implied that Joe Pilato and his goofs killed anyone there, or if they just were leaving because somebody died, because we see somebody dead in there. Steven is checking it out and someone's dead. And it's never really stated how it happened. It's just kind of like he goes, oh, this guy's dead. It's all abandoned. Yeah. And he sees the other guys, they're like, well, you're stealing you're stealing
company
property
gas.
Company gas.
Yeah. I mean,
really?
I mean, that's another just such a quirky fucking scene that stands out to me. I'm like, I mean, I remember as a kid, like, this dude's a cop. Why is he calling it company gas? So I think Romero read that line, and I think he probably knew how weird it sounded. And I think we're left to infer that clearly these guys are not cops. And maybe they shot the dude that that Steven finds in the chair dead. But it's never established for certain,
Yeah, and that's kind of the way I took it the first time I saw it, was that, oh, these guys probably aren't really cops. They just grabbed a bunch of stuff that was in there. They just kind of play the part.
Yeah.
Because they're running and they're like, oh, well, if we put this on, maybe we can intimidate others into giving us stuff or listening to us.
Yeah, like clearly they're trying to speak the lingo, but they don't understand that the police aren't a company, but they're also not very bright at the same time.
Not at all. Especially the last guy before they leave. I think he's asking for cigarettes.
Cigarettes, the cigarettes
you
guy.
Got cigarettes? Like,
you guys got any cigarettes? Like, he's just like, and they give him. And I mean, there are so many comical characters. Like, you had Jim Carrey down in the basement of the apartment building. Then you got this doofus, like, just like smiling, like, oh my god, he's just so comical. There's definitely a heavy dose of comedy in this film. I mean,
and it does play out very much like a comic book would, with your little, and not so much like your traditional comic book where it's a superhero story, or the ones where there's humor. It's more of that dark, real kind of comic book, and then every once in a while they're interjecting humor.
Yeah, for sure.
And it goes full tilt later. We know how comedic it can get.
Yeah, it gets ridiculous later. And I mean, I think, like, to the point of absurdity. And I think the absurdity is sort of the point. It's kind of like kicking the audience in the balls. You know what I mean? Like, you kind of have to stick in some absurdity there at that point to sort of release some of the tension that's building up. Because right after that part, then they really hit you with the heavy stuff, but in this particular little mini location is kind of like, I think, sort of done strictly to get all of the characters to meet and to inject a little levity into the film, because the film up until that point has been pretty fucking bleak.
Yeah, this is kind of a bit of a palate cleanser. A little humor,
Yeah.
a little slow the pace down. Let's bring our 4 main characters together.
Yeah.
Give you
Yeah.
a little humor.
Yeah.
And then we'll get you moving more into the main.
Yeah, we're gonna ground you. We're gonna ground you as the audience here at this point because, you know, it was a lot to take in. But you know, we're gonna definitely catch you on the flip side, you know.
Oh yeah,
so
definitely.
But I think the police doc might be a good place to sort of stop. I mean, unless you want to touch on the sort of the turkey shoot scene that just seems so.
I think briefly we can hit that real quick because there's not a lot to it. It's basically what I've called it is the hillbilly zombie hunting jamboree.
Yeah, it's so. I mean, I feel like out of all of the scenes I feel like it's the weakest. It feels like B-roll filler. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because it doesn't necessarily deal with any of the characters, and there's only the thinnest thread. Well, I mean, we end the police doc scene where with the famous, we're trying to get to the island, and they're like, what island? And he's like, any island. The island in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
We're literally gonna take an aluminum prop boat to the island in Pittsburgh.
It's like, okay, buddy, good luck.
Yeah, see you guys.
Good luck with that.
But maybe I like to think headcanon Joe Pilato is still actually Captain Rhodes. But he's just gone off the grid, you know, he's like a CIA guy and he's just gone off the grid and conscripted, you know, some morons to help get him to Florida, to the shelter in Florida.
This is just before he got his orders to go into that shelter and then completely lose his mind.
Or maybe he got maybe his CIA handler was like, get your ass to Florida, Rhodes. And Rhodes is like, I just need some lackeys and I'm on my way. He just, because he assembles, like, it seems like Rhodes seems to gather lackeys, like cartoonishly stupid and predictable lackeys around him.
Yeah, you know what? I could see that, and then he would just throw them into the fire so he could safely get inside the compound. I could see him doing that.
Yeah,
right, we found the through line between dawn and day.
Yeah, he just gathers about lackeys on his 6-month quest down to his last deployment underground.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, totes. That's headcanon for me. I don't know about you, Jeff. You can, and if they're gonna make
more sense now. I'm definitely gonna go with that theory.
And goddamn it, if they're gonna make like a prequel to Dawn of the Dead, they can't steal or a sequel to Dawn of the Dead, like an intramural sort of film between dawn and day. Nobody better steal my goddamn idea about that.
No, we got to trademark that. It's
because that would be fucking dope. We should shoot that film.
We have it on record whose idea it was. So if any of you out there make this movie, we will be coming after you.
Donner of the Dead, the Colonel Rhodes saga.
Dusk of the Dead.
Dusk of the Dead, yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. Or no, what would it be, like Afternoon of the Dead?
And see, in my head at first I went, oh, Twilight of the Dead. And I went, oh wait, that was a working title that Romero had for something else, which I think ultimately became Land of the Dead.
Fuck it, we're gonna call it Twilight of the Dead.
There we go. To
honor George. To honor George, pour one out for George. Zombie George. I want Zombie George to direct Twilight of the Dead.
That would be amazing.
Okay, anyway, sorry, George. Love you, man. Love your work. But yeah, no, you got the hillbilly zombie hunt jamboree, which
like you said, I think it's filler because I think there's a lot of flyover shots that are thrown in, just showing our heroic four kind of seeing what's going on down there. And it's basically just a larger version of what was going on in Night of the Living Dead at the end.
Yeah, like the end of Night of the Living Dead.
Larger groups of people getting together. And I've in my notes I have it here. It looks like it's fueled by incest and Iron City beer.
Yeah, for sure.
Lots of
Well, I mean,
beer.
yeah, you're right. Those are definitely coal country guys that and gals, and you know, definitely a lot of Iron City beer. A lot of, that stuff just tastes like just hot garbage, like metal. It tastes like it tastes like the inside of the shitty aluminum can or steel cans that came in.
Yeah.
Tastes like garbage.
Yeah.
Could you imagine a can of a hot can of Iron City beer? What that would taste like? It tastes like, you know what it tastes like? It tastes like the like if you cut the tops off of 20 Duracell batteries and you you dumped it into a can of beer.
Oh man.
It'd be so bad. Is it weird that's all I think about when I see that scene now is when they're pulling the tabs off the beer? I'm just like, God, that probably tastes like shit.
No, because they love it because it's local, but everyone else is like, oh no. No.
This tastes like cancer in a can. This is what it's just, oh man. I just every time with those scenes, I'm just like, and like you were saying, I mean, I think there's literally is there one flyover scene where they tie it together because an explosion happens underneath when they shoot the hillbillies are shooting at the zombies and they shoot the car and it explodes.
Right.
Yeah, and that's
there's
kind of
that
how
one flyover scene that kind of show it, and then we kind of get a ground scene where we're going through and seeing that it's so.
Oh yeah.
They've got their little games set up where they're shooting at them here, and
yeah,
it's really bizarre. But I think it's just there to fill the time between them leaving the police stock and then eventually getting to the airfield.
It definitely
that's where we can pick up.
Yeah, we'll definitely pick up at the airfield, but it definitely feels like. That definitely feels like scenes that were shot because the running time wasn't quite long enough.
Yeah, like they just needed some kind of filler to put in there. They're like, just put this in. We'll show it in some flyover shots and use that to show, hey, they're going over this. Kind of look what's going on down there.
Yeah, I really feel like out of all of the scenes in the movie, if I were to make a director's cut, you could cut that entire sequence out of the film and you would never, it's like when Stephen and Peter wall up a certain part of the mall. They'll just never know it was even there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you just cut that 5 minutes or whatever it is and you would just never know. I feel like the stuff that is included on the director's cut is way stronger, and they could have put that in instead of that part of the film. I don't understand how that part of the film survived.
Yeah,
because it narratively doesn't connect the scenes at all.
Having them sort of look out the window and see the flyover of it happening, totally fine with that. But once we go to the ground and we're kind of going through everything, I'm like, well, why is this here? It doesn't really affect anything. It's just showing us more of the breakdown that you've already given us in 2 scenes in the beginning.
And not even really strongly, though. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, I mean, like, okay, God, now I want to talk about this, right? Like, now I'm having feelings on this fucking part of the movie. The scenes where you see like the National Guard and they got like their howitzers in there and, and then the zombies are like coming in behind them because they're having a fucking barbecue and taking pictures and getting wasted. Like, I feel like those are strong scenes, right? Like, you could have put that in there and then just gone straight to the airfield. I mean, I'd have to see it on film to see how it would pan out. But like, or even the scene where they shoot the gas tank and it explodes, but the scenes where it's like the random hunters just shooting at the zombies, like, we could have cut that out. You could have cut that 2 minutes of film out and just went straight to the scene where they're shooting at the zombies by the car gas tank explodes, and then the W-Gon helicopter flies over, and then boom. You still have a strong scene where you're showing the military breaking down and and the civilian authorities breaking down and chaos sort of out in the country, and still have that filler time in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, because there's several shots within that entire scene of just groups of people cracking open beer, standing around talking and drinking beer. I'm like,
Yeah.
this doesn't really convey anything like what we've seen before.
Yeah.
So it's the only kind of semi-disjointed part of the movie is those scenes that are thrown in of guys just like cracking open beer and drinking them and having fun with their buddies. I'm like,
yeah, but it's just all it did for me, even as a kid. I'm just like, God, that beer looks like it tastes like shit.
Yeah.
Even as a 12-year-old,
Yeah.
I'm like, fucking Iron City beer looks fucking horrible. It looks like Iron City beer is like the tab of beers. You know what I mean? Like, tastes like battery acid, probably.
Probably. It's like, I don't even.
I feel like the Iron City beer is what caused the zombie apocalypse. Like, they mix, somebody spilled some Worcestershire sauce in the Iron City beer, and boom, zombies.
Oh man.
Anyway,
Nice South Park reference there. I appreciate that. Yeah,
but
Iron
I think,
City beer is like
Iron City
it's like
City
low
beer
class Budweiser, which Budweiser already isn't good, and if you get worse, you get Iron City beer.
Yeah, it's like you couldn't get anybody else to be in this on this podcast, so you got me, and I'm like the Iron City beer.
No.
I'm just messing with you.
No. You are like a prestigious craft brewery.
Oh no,
seasonal
I'm like
release.
My emotional intelligence. I'm like the Iron City beer of emotional intelligence. You know what I mean? Like, I like the worst. But yeah, no, I think this is probably a good place to pick up at the airports, where we get some more iconic scenes and
definitely get some
kids.
iconic scenes there.
If you love children, the next part of the next podcast is for you.
Yes, it's definitely what everyone who loves children should see.
It's the reason why I will not show this film to my wife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not gratuitous.
Yeah, it's not gratuitous, but yeah.
It was still ballsy.
Yeah, you're definitely going, and you've got coffee machines doing what coffee machines do, being dicks.
Yep.
You got a little bit of everything really at the airport.
Yeah, it's a mishmash.
It's a grab bag of horrific experiences,
all in one location. It'll be fun. So we'll pick up there on
big old shit sandwich in the zombie apocalypse.
It's the last semi-chaotic place before they get to the mall, and that's all I'll say about that.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot happening at the airport. Yeah,
there
definitely.
Is.
Yeah, so teaser there.
Well, this has been fun. I think we've had a good conversation about this first part of the film.
Oh yeah, it's been awesome, man. This is I think this is exactly how we should have done it.
Yeah.
For sure.
Definitely.
I'm excited for the next one. I'm gonna watch Dawn again.
I am too, because I want to make sure that I'm fresh for the next time, because there are some little things that I forgot because I watched so far away, and my notes are just trying to hit the key main points that we have, and I forget the little things that mean so much too.
Oh, look for Jim Carrey the next time you watch it. I'm telling you.
I'm definitely gonna pause it on Jim Carrey.
He makes a Jim Carrey face like this. That is Jim Carrey's dad. I refuse to believe that is not Jim Carrey's dad. Telling you, man. And Wooly, man, fucking Wooly. Fuck Wooly, man. Fuck that guy.
Yeah. He's garbage.
He's garbage. Now he's a zombie.
Yeah, because didn't even shoot him in the head. He shot him in the chest.
Somebody needs to go ape. Like, I feel like, dang, why would you not shoot Wooly in the head? Like, fuck Wooly, man. Oh, I guess, I don't know.
I'm thinking because
He's
there
gonna
was
be-
still somebody on his back, so he didn't want to risk shooting someone else at the same time.
He's just gonna be a crazy ass zombie though, Wooly. Like, he's gonna be the crazy, like a racist zombie.
Oh,
Can you
man.
imagine that?
Oh no! Now we're gonna get a side movie of Wooly as a zombie. Oh Jesus!
Yeah, it's gonna
All
be
right.
like directed by Bobcat Goldthwait.
Oh man!
Anyway, all right, man. Yeah, I'm sorry, Jeff. I know I'm gonna probably alienate lots of your listeners
Oh,
with my.
please! If I haven't alienated enough people already with the way I talk on this show,
All righty. Well, hey, I'm being summoned, my friend. But yeah, let's get an offline conversation going for the next one, my friend.
yeah, definitely. We'll put a pin in this here, and yeah, I want to thank you for this part of the conversation, and we'll be back for more for you guys with probably 1 to 2 more episodes. I'm not sure. We'll see how it plays out.
Yeah.
We'll see what we do. All right. Thanks,
All
Pat.
righty. Well, yeah, not a problem, Jeff. You want to take us out?
I'll take us out. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So that was part 1 of our 1978 Dawn of the Dead breakdown. We'll be releasing parts 2 and 3 shortly hereafter throughout the month of February, as I said, in honor of George Romero's birthday. We hope you guys had as much fun listening to it as we did recording it. And I want to thank my friend Patrick French for coming on and doing part 1, 2, and 3 with me, because it's a lot to discuss, but he was up for it because he's as big a fan of the movie as I am. And as always, you can find us on social media. Check us out on Facebook. Just search for Skewered Universe Podcast. You can go to Twitter at SkeweredU, Instagram Skewered_Universe, and you can find us on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, Listen Notes, Amazon and Audible, TuneIn.com, and Player FM. All that'll be in the notes as well. You can leave feedback for the show at skewereduniversepodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget, if you want to support the show, head on over to patreon.com/Skewered Universe Podcast. You can join at the 2 tiers we have. One is $3, one is $7. At the $3 you get exclusive access to our Skewered Universe Transmissions episodes. At the $7 tier you will get not only the Transmissions episodes, but exclusive audio commentaries that we record here, as well as the ability to recommend movies for the show. Head on over to patreon.com/Skewered Universe Podcast. Help support the show if you like it. And with that, keep enjoying that universe that's just a bit, skewered.